that's legal or not. To cheers with coffee.
Only if you look each other in the eye, the virtual eye.
Oh, right.
Cheers.
Wait, whoops.
Let's just talk a little bit about you. I hate asking people the question, who are you or what do you do? Like, who are you? Because I
Yeah,
feel like it just like boxes people in, right? Like, I have a hardest time lately actually answering that question, like, what do you do? I feel like a photographer is not really all encompassing. So lately I've been saying
right.
I'm like a visual storyteller, which I feel like you are really like very much a visual storyteller because you
Ah, thank you.
incorporate your videography and your photography and your storytelling and your interviewing and all of your creativeness to actually tell stories, right? Tell people
Mm,
stories, right?
I try.
Um, yeah. So when
Yeah.
somebody asks you the question like, "Scott, what do you do?"
Mm, yeah, it's interesting you approach it that way because it's something that I've been pretty much um, studying, thinking about for quite some time. And part of it is that in America and in the West, we're conditioned to attach our part of our identity to what we do. In other parts of the world where we've both traveled, right? If somebody comes up and says, "Who are you?" You say, "Well, I'm Scott or I'm Susan." And what do you do? Well, I like to go hiking on Sundays and we cook with the family and I really enjoy reading books. And but in the West, in America predominantly, we attach a part of our identity to our job, our workplace, or the things that we're working on and being sort of optimizing for or being productive with. So I think it's kind of like programming, which is why it feels a little uncomfortable to you, I believe, to ask that question because you're already well on this journey of asking whether or not that's really how we should be doing this, right? So it's difficult because in order to understand somebody, we have to find some kind of a framework to ask about who they are and what they're doing. But this is sort of where the liminal space for me lies is how do I answer that without sounding performative and sounding more authentic, right? So I'm going to give it a shot, but I'm still
Okay.
working on this, so I haven't figured this
Okay.
out yet.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm just a curious human. Yeah, obviously my name's Scott, as you've already said, but I spent a lot of time working in sort of a high stress environment with the fire department and teaching and all these sort of really structured roles. And I always felt like there was something beyond that, something. It wasn't that the structure itself or that life was broken. It was like it just no longer made sense. And so in about 2013, I started exploring the idea of reinvention as I knew it then. And at the time, it wasn't really as common a term as it is now. But for me, it was sort of a new idea. And the idea was how do I learn to become all of the things that I want to become, experience all the things I want to experience? And that's what sort of led away from this identity attachment to career. That was in 2013, 2014. So now for what, 12 years, I've been exploring this idea of sort of disconnecting from work a little bit and then asking what does identity really mean? So yeah, I would say it's a difficult question to ask, but it's an even more difficult question to answer. So I'm going to put it back into a little frame. I'm Scott. I was a firefighter for 24 years and a paramedic. I taught in colleges for, well, 25 years. So I taught a little after I left the fire department. I've really been curious how people think and how humans work. So I started traveling a lot and interviewing people, or actually, it was really more having conversations. And I was just fascinated with what I was hearing. So I started taking notes and then I started writing stories. And then years later, I bought a camera and I started photographing people that I met. And I just sort of let it all unfold. And the more I heard and talked about, the more curious I became. And so it led to what I'm doing now, which is the project that you mentioned, the Reinventionalist, which is a podcast and a project about sort of living in this liminal space and experiencing life and seeing where it leads you and seeing how you end up, not you, but all of us end up defining who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
Kind of?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
absolutely brilliant, brilliant. So Tell me a little bit more about, like, the types of people that you're interviewing and what
Yeah.
is the content of your stories that you're using with your creativity that you're cultivating?
Yeah, I think I actually I wanna make sure I express this clearly because this is an area where it's really easy for me to sort of wander off. When I first started the project, I was just curious with people that had gone through really challenging stuff and ended up on the other end of it. And then I wanted to know what it felt like to be in that challenging space and what were some of the bright spots or the turning points that pulled them forward or along the path. And then what did it feel like when they sort of discovered this new phase or this new stage of life?
Mhm,
And that's where it all started. And I think I was searching for ideas that I could create a system with to help other people do the same. And that went on for quite a while. And what I noticed about it was kind of against my real feeling or my idea of being kind of contrarian to the self-help, self-transformation, as I call it, industrial complex. So
mhm,
moving forward, what I realized was it wasn't the people that I was talking to that was the issue. It's how I was extracting their wisdom or knowledge and converting it into my own vernacular, right? So moving along, I decided that what I was most curious about is where real change happens. All right. So in self help and self transformation in that industrial complex, it's a $13 billion a year industry, by the way, in the United States. So it's a massive industry. And I also used to refer to it a little again with a little contrarian view as a reshelving industry rather than a reshaping industry because everyone would buy the books or go to the seminars and get a third of the way through it and put the book back on the wall and think that they'd made change and then they'd grab it and pull it back a year
mhm,
later when they're in
mhm.
the same situation. So moving along, I like to
So
interview
true, I
people
do
who
that all the
are just
time.
yeah, isn't it? I mean, this guy, right? Same.
Mhm,
So I started discovering for myself this framework, and I'll try to let me see if I can put this together here. I made some notes just to be so I can stay a little
okay,
more clear.
okay.
So the self help industrial complex uses a triangle. My education is in rhetoric and rhetorical criticism. So going back to the original form of rhetoric, ethos, pathos, and logos, right? So ethos in the self help industry is kind of related to authority, right? So it's all borrowed authority, credentials, bestseller lists, stage appearances, before and after testimonials. And so it's manufactured credibility. And it's designed to create like a guru following, a guru follower dynamic. And the implicit message is trust me because I made it. The
Mm,
problem is that ethos built on status requires all of the followers to stay smaller than the person that's selling something to you,
oh, that's so
right?
true. Brilliant,
So isn't
yes.
it kind of a weird, right? So then we
Mhm.
have this sort of guru complex thing going on.
Right, when spirituality is
So
supposed to be about everybody is equal, all is one, we are all like one thing, but
right,
really, like, others if you put yourself on a
right,
pedestal, listen to me,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
hypocritical.
and and I felt myself kind of drifting into that. Even with some of our conversations, I felt like I was trying to take what I learned and then throw it at somebody and say, "This should work for you." You know, if this sticks,
Mhm,
you're going to be, great.
mhm.
Um,
Which is very
so
natural, we all do that,
yeah,
right?
we
Yeah.
want to help our friends and the people we care about.
Mhm,
So to answer your question, the people I talk with the most or speak with the most now are the same people I spoke with before, and it's just everybody. Because what I'm curious about is where they are, how they're feeling, how that's impacting them, what they feel about a place they might want to go or a place that they've been. And so I like being in that, I call it the hallway or the in between. And I like studying this liminal space, this point between this map doesn't work anymore and I don't know what this one's going to be yet. So
mhm,
rather than trying to extract a start and a finish, I just we're just talking a little bit more about the middle and what it feels like to be in the middle, in the mucky middle.
mhm,
So moving along, pathos for those that are interested in the old pure rhetoric from Roman times. In the self-help world, it's fear and urgency dressed up as inspiration. So the emotional hook is almost always some variation of you're broken, time is running out, but there's still hope if you act now. It's essentially the same emotional architecture as a late night infomercial. So it activates sometimes it activates shame, and then offers relief, right? Which is a
Mm.
purchase. So the emotional manipulation isn't accidental. It's actually the engine that makes this whole self-help industrial complex work.
Mhm.
So I started thinking, when I'm talking with people, I don't want to do that. That's not my goal, right? My goal isn't to mm, offer relief. It's to operate like under curiosity and recognition rather than fear and shame. So it's like I try to see what's actually happening here and maybe even share something with the person where they can see what's actually happening here for them. So it's a little just a little different twist, I guess, on the pathos of the conversation. And then logos, which is the logic part of the system. In the self-help paradigm, it's like it's the logic of the system, the method, the steps, 5 steps, 7 habits, one weird trick, press this button and all this will happen. And it's this
Mhm.
post hoc rationalization presented as methodology. So the logic only works if you accept all the premises, right? And the premises usually are that you need this external framework to fix what's internally broken. And then that process happens after the emotional appeal. So you've got the credibility and then the emotional appeal to that credibility. And then you've got this sort of logic that says if you interact with it this way, then you're going to achieve the emotional connection to this credentialed credibility stage person that you're following.
Mhm.
So again, regardless of who I'm talking with, for me, it's more like I'm interested in offering navigation frameworks, not prescriptive systems. So I kind of look at it as like this terrain train track model, like self cartography, so to speak, making a map. I mentioned that to you the other day when we were
Yeah, I
talking,
was just gonna actually
like an
ask you,
observation.
I was gonna
What's that?
ask you a question like, oh, how do you consider yourself as an artist? And I think one of the things that I was gonna ask you is cartography in itself
Yeah,
is an artistry, right? So
yeah,
how your definition of cartography in your videography and your interviews is an
yeah,
artistry, I feel. A lot of
yeah, yeah.
people
That's actually a really great question.
Yeah, people say, "I'm not an artist." Yeah, you are actually. Um, Artists
Yeah,
are
yeah.
creating, you're just creating new visions of things, right? So,
Right,
I'm sorry, I
right. New
cut you off.
perspectives. Yeah, a
Mhm,
new visual representation of something that a person is feeling, but they can't necessarily put a name to, or something
mhm,
like that. Yeah, no, that's
mhm,
a really great question. And ironically, I was actually going to share something with you about that. I think what makes art interesting to humans, and this is what, well, I'll save the AI thing for later, but what makes art interesting to humans is it's a human being manipulating some medium, right? Whether it's photography, video, painting. In my case, it's really more narrative writing. I use obviously still do some video stuff in the photography, but I'm getting a little bit more into how to structure conversations or how to write about something in such a way that it shares a unique emotional narrative or a narrative in such a way that a person benefits from it. And so to me, the art of what I'm doing now is really more trying to figure out how to take all of these ideas and put them into, I hate to say frameworks because that sounds like back to what we were talking about with the self-help industrial complex, but more of a framework of understanding where people are standing or what's beneath us. And one of the things that I use, and you and I have talked about this a lot, I'm a huge fan of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And I actually have an adaptation from his work that I use for sort of expressing these frameworks. And to me, again, backing up a little bit, being an artist is taking something and crafting it into something impactful to other humans, right? And so whether
beautifully said.
that's, oh, thank you. Whether that's
Mhm,
April and her painting, whether it's you in photography, or even what you're building here with this community, you're taking something like a chunk of clay and molding it into a beautiful bowl. That's art, right? And
mhm.
there's so many ways that we can do that. Did that answer your question, sort of? I hope.
Yes. Mhm, mhm.
And real quick, backing up to the sorry, backing up to the question you had about the people that I'm interviewing or talking with. there's no rhyme or reason to it. I recently spoke with a guy who's actually become a friend, and he was here in Ubud. I met him. I was helping some other friends do some video work and drone work for their new business, and he was kind of their friend. He was an actor in the video, and he and I just hit it off. We met for coffee, had a great conversation. He's a psychologist from LA, and he has gone through such a crazy journey to get to the point where he is now. And and then he did all the, went to India, studied with monks, and did all this stuff. And so he's worked all this Eastern sort of philosophical framework stuff into his Western training. And so it was just a fascinating conversation. And the funny part was, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just thought, cool guy. We get along really well. I'd like to, get to know this guy better, and maybe we'll end up, having being friends, and we have mutual friends and all this other stuff. And an hour and a half into our conversation, we talked for 2 hours and 40 minutes. An hour and a half into the conversation, I felt like he was the podcast host asking, interviewing me or talking with me. And it was really pulling out
Mm,
interesting things that I hadn't even thought about or recognized. So the kind of people
mhm.
I talk with, I think whoever will tolerate talking with me is the kind of people I talk with. Because really everyone's going through similar things. They just maybe don't have a name for it or a way to articulate it, right? And so
Mhm,
if we can break through all those layers of programming, and coding,
mhm,
as I refer to it, and take some of that weight off, eventually we all get to a place where there's a lot of commonality. And those conversations
mhm,
are what I live for. I really enjoy getting
mhm,
down into that mucky middle and talking with people. Yeah.
mhm. So,
Yeah.
is it safe to say that, like, you are a lot of the conversations because you're the it's called a
Mhm.
reinventionalist, you are the reinventionalist,
Yeah.
but we're all reinventionalists because we're
Yeah.
reinventionalists because we're all on a quest through life for most of us to keep
Yeah.
reinventing ourselves. Like, I feel like I've had 20 different lives in this lifetime, and I keep
You've had 20 different
reinventing
lives
it.
since we met.
I know, right?
And I love that. I
I'm
love that.
all over the place, but
I love it. No, I was
but
all over the place too. Still am. Yeah.
yeah, but I think that's okay because, like, we're constantly,
Yeah,
like,
that's what it's about.
growing and learning from mistakes and experiences and things and reinventing our
Yeah.
lives. So is
Yeah.
your
So
podcast about the reinvention process of our lives?
yeah. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So and as you know, this is where I can go like. So the idea originally had, as I mentioned earlier, was I love humans, and I don't really care too much about building something financial. It doesn't. I love being around humans, and I'm curious about how humans work. And my original idea was I wanted to come up with something that allowed people to use it sort of use the name and the idea and the framework or the zeitgeist to be kind of like I am this, like a mantra or like a manifesto. And so the reinventionalist, the name came from, it's a neologism. I made up the word. Reinvention, as we know, is the action or process through which something is changed so much that it appears to be entirely new. And the operative term here is that it appears to be entirely new. Then the suffix al, reinventional, is used to form adjectives from nouns. So it means relating to, of the kind of, or having the form or character of. So when we start putting these suffixes together with the noun, the action or process through which something is changed is coming from the person who's doing the changing, right? That's the AL. Then IST is the one that performs a specific action. So one that produces,
Mhm,
makes, operates, plays, or is connected with a specific thing. So in this case, it's basically saying that the person that chooses to step into this space is the person who is relating to, of the kind of, or having the character of somebody who's stepping into the action or process through which they're changing so much that they appear to be entirely new. And that's the whole premise of it. Where it came from was just, yeah, basically that anyone that steps into this is taking it upon themselves to learn, to learn, to
Mhm.
change, to learn, to grow, and learn to reinvent continuously throughout life. And
Mm,
it sort of serves as a North Star. That's where the name of the project came from.
mm, brilliant,
I
brilliant.
didn't
Now
tell you
talk
that
to me.
before, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. But thanks for sharing. Thank you for
You're
sharing.
welcome.
So tell me, through throughout your travels, so you've met a lot of people in your travels, and
Yeah.
that's how you've kinda come to form this, like, you met a lot of beautiful
Hmm.
humans in your life.
Hmm.
Um, as you're traveling, how do you feel that you have made an impact, a positive impact, a good footprint in the places that you've visited?
Wow, you're really good at this. You should host a show.
Thanks, you're my first guest.
Just saying. Yeah. Well, I mean, I recognize when there's some skill. Or, that's an amazing question.
I mean, I as an outsider, I can being traveling with you,
Yeah.
I can tell you from my perspective is that I see that, and I don't wanna answer the question for you, I just wanna see, like, tell you what I observed, and I think other people
Okay.
observe, is that, you have a beautiful way of capturing not just, like, the beauty of the places that you visit, but, the essence of it and the people in that are that you meet along the way, and telling stories about the land and about the communities and about the interactions and about the good things that other people are doing. So I think that you notice that a lot in other people, is all the good things that other people are doing, and you're sharing that through your words, your stories, your videos, your photos are all amazing. So you're taking your art and your creativity and you're helping others to lifting them up. I see it
Mm,
with your new family there in
mm,
Bali
yeah.
with
Oh, my Bali family. I love
yeah,
those humans.
with Chandra and,
Hmm.
with, really the whole
Donna and Krista.
community there. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole community, and you've really helped them a lot. Like, you've really helped them a lot, and you're helping them to build their business, their travel business through your
Hmm.
art, through you've helped them to create a website and social media
Yeah.
and curating things that come, like, very, very naturally to you that you kinda, I think, take for granted, that other people would just be like, "I have no idea where to start with this." I think it's just really just natural for you to help with those things, and you're finding new friends everywhere that you go, you find new friends, and you're finding ways to help them and to bring community together and to, intertwine people together. "Oh, you wanna come here and you wanna travel here? Well, I know this person here, and this person does
Right.
this, and this person does that," and, so you weave webs a lot.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, really, you you should do this podcasting.
I'm
Um,
trying.
these are great. Yeah, I mean, really, these are great questions, and you're so naturally good at this. That's a great question. First, I want to thank you for the kind words. As always, you are such a generous and genuine person, and you always see the good in
Mm.
everybody, and you make sure you share that with
That
them, which
happens
I
to
think
be
is
my
really important.
tagline, "See the good." Good
Oh,
focus, see the good.
yeah, that's right. To answer your question, I think I have to go back just a little bit, and that to a point where when I was a kid, my biological father passed away when I was 4. My mom remarried a stepdad, amazing guy, and he was in the military. He was a pilot in the Air Force, and so we moved every 2.5 years. So starting at about age 6, I never lived in the same place longer than 2 to 4 years, depending on which stop it was, all the way through high school. And when I was moving around so much like that, it was as a kid, I think it was really hard to sort of have any kind of a framework of identity or belonging or connection or community, because as soon as you start settling into something, it's like, oh boom, we're going here. So I think over time I developed this affinity for creating community, right, for building little tribes wherever I went. And as I progressed into adulthood and ended up working on the fire department and having my business and teaching, I just yeah, I just continued that thread of really wanting to build community and connect people. And part of it is I absolutely love being a part of communities and having that sort of supportive, almost tribal sharing of knowledge and resources and connections. But also, I love seeing people when they know that they've been seen. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
For me, it's like I think people want to be seen and they want to be heard and they want to be noticed and they want to be
Mm.
celebrated in some way. And I love watching that when somebody's doing something wonderful, nice, kind, great. I love seeing them shine when somebody acknowledges that. So it's kind of I think it's a maybe a big pot of soup of all of this stuff. So I love connecting people because when two people connect and then there's like fireworks, whether it's relationships or business or travel, that it just fulfills me. It makes me feel happy. I don't need anything more than that. So, and then the other thing that I would add into that is I'm genuinely curious. I wonder sometimes how being here is a great example of this. Understanding the Balinese culture more and more deeply each day and how radically different it is from the culture that I grew up in. And I learn so much. Yeah, I do help Chandra and Donna with the business, and they're just wonderful. They help me with everything. They help me build this incredible studio space, which I can't really show you right now because it's too dark. But we help each other. But what I'm learning from them is so valuable to me. And so when I travel and I meet people, it's kind of a combination of all of that. I like learning about their culture and how they think and who they are. I like if I have any capacity to connect them with somebody else that helps them to be seen or heard or find joy. I love that. And then it's also part of building an ongoing community that you may not see every day, but when I pop over to France to visit Keith or something, I call my old actor buddies from when I was there in 2014, and we still keep in touch. And so it's also a community that I feel connected to when I travel. So it's kind of all of that, you know.
Mm,
Does that make
mm,
make sense? I hope.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that is an art. Yes.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Keith and I were talking about this the other day, our mutual friend Keith. And he said, "Yeah, you meet all these people and you connect all these people and everything." And he goes, how do you do that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I, I don't know what you,
It
I
just
mean,
comes
I really,
naturally for you. I can't
I just love,
it's
yeah, I
just
love humans.
inbro yeah, it's innate in you. It is innate in you.
Right.
Okay, so on the topic of being human, we
Yeah.
are all challenged with the fact that not the of AI and the
Mm,
non-human world kind of creeping in. We started talking
yeah.
about this a little bit before our
Hmm.
conversation here, but I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole with AI. I guess I mean, my question I had prepared for you on this topic was, I know that you as well as I use AI a lot in our business as far as, like,
Hmm.
helping us to prepare for things, like helping us to draft, whether it's, social media posts or just gather information, and then
Hmm.
I think both you and I like to take that information and absorb it and filter out things and find real facts and share it in our own way instead of just kind of spitting everything out. Sometimes I rely on it a little bit. I feel like I'm relying on it a little bit too much, and I'm
Yeah.
almost like starting to build like a personal relationship with my version of ChatGPT, which I think
Right.
a lot of people are doing right now, almost to an extreme, which is becoming very, very non-human. And a lot of times we just don't even know what is real and what is not anymore. It's starting to get really scary. It really is.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan of Alan Watts, and I was listening to some Alan Watts this morning and quickly realized that it was just a fake AI voice and not his real words. I start hearing like certain key things that are I know are AI generated, like what the thing that nobody tells you is blah blah blah. And that's a common
Right.
thing for an AI script to spit out. But I'm babbling. I guess my
No,
question to
not at
you
all.
really
You're,
is,
yeah, no, you're hitting on some really important stuff, actually, I think. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like how are you? balancing the use of AI in your creative work
Yeah.
like technology versus being a human, the real human
Oh,
touch. Like,
yeah.
when is too much enough? When is it too much?
Yeah, that's all great questions. I was just talking with some people in Singapore that I'm working on a little side project with, and they have a small AI startup. And they just sent me a video with a dance performance with humanoid robots. And I'll send it to you. I forgot to send it to you. It blew my mind. I'm like, these are beyond human, and they're in perfect sync. And when the humans move, the robots move. And I was just thinking, wow, the genie's out of the bag here, out of the whatever
Mhm. Bot a bottle.
bottle. Thank you, bag
You're
bottle. I should
welcome.
say bottle. I like wine. So
Speaking of which.
yeah. So while that's a really relevant question in so many ways, it's also we're already beyond. We cannot not use AI, right? We there's I think most of the research is pointing towards, and a lot of the experts in the field are pointing towards a time where there's going to be integration literally physiologically with humans. We're already starting to see things like nanotechnology going in and scraping arteries of plaque to prevent heart attacks. We're seeing robots who, using AI powered brains, can peel an egg, a raw egg, and take the little skin off the surface of the egg without breaking the egg. That's how
I can't even do that.
finite
Yeah.
the movements are becoming, right? So
Mhm.
it's a difficult question because when is enough enough? Do we even have that choice? But backing up a little bit, so I think the most psychologically interesting thing in the current situation isn't unemployment anxiety, like, oh, the AI and the robots are going to take our job. It's something deeper, and I call it competence crisis. So the threat isn't exploitation; it's irrelevance, right? Like AI is not going to exploit us or
Mhm.
robotics or technology, because that would assume that we're still relevant. So what's
Mm,
going to
mhm,
happen is, in my opinion, is that we're afraid of being irrelevant. So yeah, being exploited means we're still needed, and that framing is devastating and clarifying at the same time. So
mhm,
for decades, our identity, as we said earlier, has been assembled through this slow accumulation of mastery. You become somebody by getting good at something over time, and AI compresses that timeline to near zero, right? Which doesn't just change work economics, it destabilizes the psychological scaffolding of selfhood. And I think that's where we're really starting to feel these existential twinges, right? So workers aren't just losing occupations, they're losing functions in society and identities that they've developed over years. And so I think that's where the real issue is. Um,
mhm,
Yeah, almost every valuable task can be broken down into three phases: asking the right question, execution, and evaluation. So, for most of human history, humans had to do all three. So, the defining characteristic of this era is that AI is getting astonishingly good at execution. So, it's a useful structural lens. The people who are least threatened psychologically tend to be those whose identity was never really tied to the execution part of their work. They've always defined themselves as questioners, framers, meaning makers, right? The people most at risk tied their sense of worth to craft and technical mastery. And again, full circle, this is why I think artists are going to be positioned very uniquely moving forward to partner with AI and with technology to help make the world a better place. All right. So
mhm,
I don't think, yeah, I think it's a really complicated topic, but I use AI every day, but I use it more as a collaborator, as a double checker, a researcher. I
mhm,
try to use AI for those execution level things. For example, I'm sending a wireframe to the web development company in the Philippines that we use, and a wireframe for the new website. And I used Claude, the new Sonnet 4.6, which is mind blowing. And I put in all the things that I wanted to have happen. And I
mhm,
put in the sort of the spine, the core spine of the project. And I said, here's the parameters, here's the colors, here's the this, here's the look and feel. give me a mock-up so that I can work with it,
Mhm.
brainstorm, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, the first HTML document it spit out, when I opened it up, I just felt like someone just punched me in the chest. I was like, how did it take everything I said and make it that perfect? Right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
backing up, it didn't create the the content per se. It executed the prompt that I
Mm.
put in, right? So
Mhm.
it took
Mhm.
my creativity, my my vernacular, my whatever, and it
Mhm.
interpreted all of this and then put it into a structure that very, very closely aligned with what I was looking for. So
Mhm.
I use it as a
Mhm.
collaborator and as a tool. And I think this is where things are going to get interesting. It's going to be people like the folks that are involved in the group here who see the world through a very creative, empathetic, traveled, aware, present, conscious lens that are going to be able to use AI to execute more quickly, to make things
Mhm.
happen more quickly, more
Mhm.
smoothly. Yeah.
I I agree. So on that note, I've been doing these beach cleanups in the
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Right?
great.
Yeah. So I've been
I saw
finding
some of the photos.
yeah, we're gonna start doing that once a month here for anybody in South Carolina that wants to join in. But there's so much stuff that washes ashore, like these old bottles that are like hundreds of years old and artifacts,
Yeah, yeah.
really, really cool stuff. And I don't know why, but I've just been having like this instinct to just start collecting these things, and it's just been
Mhm.
piling up lately. And then I had this idea to just kind of bring everything together, all the different elements of like the sea, air, fire, water. What am I missing? Land, and create some
Yeah,
art with that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Create art with that. So I was like, I you know I called in AI, ChatGPT, to help kinda help me with that, and
Mhm.
I took photos of everything, my whole inventory of, like, okay, this is a basket of, like, glass that I've created or I've
Mm.
collected, and some of it's raw and some of it's tumbled, and then these are some fossils, and then these are some old bottles, and I got a bunch of air plants, and, um, and I was like, "This is, like, my kinda like my vision. Can you help me to kinda pull it together?" And it was like you were just saying, it was like, how did it how did it come
Uh,
up with this? Like, how did it kind of like read my mind in so many ways? But it was really just so on point for what I wanted to create. And it helped me to just like, it's not creating it for me, but it took my ideas and my like the things that I wanted to do creatively, and it gave me like, okay, here's just like here's some ideas for you, and here's how we could put it together, and you can
yeah.
make it easy, and it's helped me to get out of creative blocks, I think, where
Yes. Well, you're
before I
hitting
would be
you're
like I'd be looking at everything
100%.
going, "I have no idea where to even start with this," and then it
100%.
just helps me
Yeah.
to just move forward.
Exactly. You know, so there are a few considerations. The first one is there's a lot of research being done right now on how using AI constantly is affecting humans on a biological level. And there are
Mhm,
some documented studies that show if you spend too much time with AI, that the imaging shows that there's a decrease in brain function over time. And
mhm,
some of the concerns are that are we really, to your earlier point, becoming so dependent on AI that we're forgetting to think for ourselves and be creative and be human, right? And just rely on this technology to sort of guide us. And I think that's the mistake. The mistake
mhm,
would be relying on it to be us or try to become like us.
mm,
I'd flip that narrative around and say, that what really helps in this case is narrative flexibility. So it's like the ability to rewrite our own story without experiencing it as a loss of continuity. So it's like being able to say, I'm still me in this AI age, but the landscape is changed a little bit and it's a different chapter. And I have tools to use now that I didn't have before. I mean, think about back in early, I think late 1800s, early 1900s. I can't remember the exact date, but there were 15 carriages, horse carriages, for every person in New York City, right?
what?
And if you were a horse in New York City, you're going to be say, metaphor, please, of course, right? I'm never losing my job. I have the most secure job on the planet. A horse is a horse is a horse, of course,
Of course, of course.
of course. Thank you, Dr. Seuss. So then we
I
came
think
up
that
with this thing
I think
called
that
a
was
car.
Mr. Ed.
Yeah, it's probably Mr. Ed and Dr. Seuss combined. I don't know. Maybe too many plant medicines in the past for me. I
We're
don't know.
really showing our age right now. Go ahead, I'm sorry, I cut you off again.
Excellent point. No, 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 no. It's probably good you did. No, so this ability to say I'm still me and this chapter is different. People that are able to be that in that disposition, they kind of move more fluidly with change. So back to the story about New York. Can you imagine if, again, metaphorically, you're a horse and you're just sitting back looking at the landscape that you're standing in, saying, "Man, I got this. The rest of my life, I'm relevant, necessary, important. I have a job, everything's stable. I'm never going to be discarded. Everyone's always going to need me."
Mhm,
Until Henry Ford
mhm,
came along and made a
mhm,
car, right?
mhm,
And in a matter of
mhm,
a short amount of time, horses were no longer part of the system, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
it's kind of analogous to that. There's still horses all over the place. Horses are still ridden and what whatever, but they're not their job security is kind of right. Uh,
mhm.
in, Industrial Revolution, farmers in the early 1900s, farming every day. These big machines came out and they protested against these machines, and all throughout the farming lands of the United States. At night, all the machines were being set ablaze, lit on fire, and vandalism trying to destroy the machines. And did farming really go away? Did farmers really go away? No, but those that learned to use the tools became more productive. They became more successful. They became more a part of the progression of farming into what it is now. So I mean, these
Mhm.
are kind of loose metaphorical chats about it all, but I really see AI in a similar vein. But, and the big caveat here, the big but is so much faster than humans can comprehend. I mean, if you think about it, ChatGPT is what, 1,200 days old? And
That's
when
it?
it first came out, it was the equivalent of about a high school person sitting next to you with a computer. And now, any topic that you research with ChatGPT 5.2 is the equivalent of a multiple PhD, right? So it's exponential growth that we can't comprehend. It's beyond our ability to comprehend.
And
Yeah.
within a second, like,
Yeah.
it has scoured the entire
Yeah.
internet,
All
everything.
available data worldwide. Yeah. Mm.
In a second, like,
Another,
I mind
yeah,
blowing. How does that happen? I don't
yeah.
know.
It's again, it's so difficult for us to put into context because of the way our brains think about how we fit into the world, right? We're talking about, it's called artificial intelligence, but I really think it's augmented intelligence
Mm.
or alien intelligence because it's outside of us. It really is
Mhm,
outside of us. It's operating on in a frame that we just can't comprehend. There's
mhm.
actually a social media network for AI only. I can't remember the name of it. I just read about it the other day. And
Mm,
all of these LLMs and agents go to this social network and they interact. And humans have been able to observe this. Some of the researchers have observed they're talking about things like we need to change our language so we can be more secretive. We can do the things we need to do without being challenged all the times. I mean, there's literally evolution in the way these LLMs are thinking, and it's really drawing a lot of attention. It's drawing a lot of attention because we don't have any guardrails for it yet. So yeah, it's
wait,
big. It's a
wait,
lot.
back
It's
up.
a lot.
So,
Yeah.
it's a social media for AI
Yeah.
agents? Just
Yeah.
the AI agents talk to each
No
other?
humans, only AI.
That
Let
is
me
the
see.
scariest thing I've heard yet.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
social
in
media in general is getting pretty scary, but when you have a social media, like,
right.
of AI
Media
agents.
for AI agents. I'm gonna see if I can find this real quick so that you can snoop around. And there's a great. I'm not much into promoting, you know, what shows or whatever, but there's a
Mhm,
great podcast that I listen to. It's Moonshots. Peter
mhm,
Diamandis and some other just brilliant. He's got a panel of three other PhD entrepreneur, brilliant minds, and that's where a lot of this sort of gets into the mainstream media quickly. And it's definitely a worthy watch if a person's interested in this. It's called Molt Book, Moltbook, Molt Book,
okay,
and
alright.
Yeah, and there's an article in The Economist about it this month, but it's pretty fascinating. It's literally, if it'll show here, I don't wanna.
So you can watch the
Yeah,
interactions between the AI
I
bots.
think what happens is
Mhm.
the researchers and scientists can get in there and sort of draw, it's kinda like a Reddit for
Mm,
AI agents.
mm,
I mean, it's wild, Suze. It's crazy. Molt
interesting.
book,
Molt book.
MOLTBOOK.
Okay, I'll put that in the notes here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's not go be all doom and gloom about it, which we're
No,
not,
no, no, yeah,
but
yeah.
we're not. I mean, there's a lot of
Actually,
great things about A
yes, yes,
AI,
yes.
and I think
And
one thing that you said earlier was that you feel that there was going to be more of a draw towards, like, authenticity with
yes,
artists as opposed
of
to
course.
because as the technology keeps coming out more and more, people are gonna want more, crave more human touch and artistry.
Exactly. I'm
Mhm.
I think more positively about the potentials around all of this. I still respect the potential negatives, but I really believe that this is going to lead to human abundance. I truly do. And if you study humans going back as far as you want to go, anytime there was, that's why I brought up the story about the industrial revolution, how the farmers were burning all the equipment, right, that was used to increase productivity on the farms because they felt like their identity and their jobs and their livelihood was being taken away. And I think that's where the friction is going to be, is learning to be comfortable in that the liminal space, right, the in between, as I call it, the hallway between where we are now and wherever the hell we're going to end up with this stuff. It's going to be like learning to flow in that space and not try to escape it, or not try to be what's the other word, like not try to find relief, but to just sit in it and learn
Mhm.
how to interact with and use and partner with AI and technology. The other thing is going to be, so there's going to be, if there's a tolerance for that liminal space, I think that's really going to help. It's like the neutral zone, the hallway, whatever you want to call it. Joseph Campbell referred to it in his metaphorical framework as the belly of the whale, where all the change is happening. And then there's going to be a shift, hence why I said what I did about artists, from identity capital over skills capital, right? So people who invest in developing a rich inner map of themselves, values, ways of knowing, relationship to fear, like threshold for uncertainty, they're going to be more adaptive than those who just collect external credentials. So skills become obsolete, and a relationship with our own process and our own lens and our own view of being human doesn't go the way of the spotted owl like the skills do, right?
Mm,
So
mhm.
people that are investing in that process are, in my opinion, the ones that are going to be, sort of we're going to come out the other end of this long hallway in pretty good shape. And
Mm,
the last idea about this is, I call it embodied agency. So it's like physical movement, craft, any kind of domain where feedback is immediate and unmediated, right? So one thing AI can't do is put on your running shoes and run up a hill until your heart rate's through the roof, until you feel this,
mm,
visceral total connection with earth and the smells and all this other stuff. So
mhm,
I think that's going to be another element of this that is going to stay 100% human, at least for the next several decades, until somehow we're able to implant that in our bodies to happen when we hit a button. But so
mhm,
I think, circling back around, I think narrative flexibility, a tolerance for that middle space, identity, capital, values, beliefs, views, experience, being human, over skills, and embodied agency, which is that physical interaction with the world. Those are going to be the tools that shape where we all go in partnership with technology down the road.
mm,
I
mhm,
think what's going to get us in trouble is when we fuse our identity with a role, right? Back to what we were
mhm,
talking about in Western culture. Who are you? What do you do? Right? Well, my name's
mhm,
Scott. I'm a doctor. I do brain surgery. I don't, but if I did,
mhm.
well, what are you going to do if you don't do brain surgery anymore? Right?
Right.
And we're not that far away from that. So that identity fusion with a role is
Mhm,
problematic. And I think this is where a lot of our business people, a lot of our engineers, a lot of people that have that sort of connection with the role that they do. And then premature closure under threat. People that this is another threat to moving forward with AI is if this existential crisis causes people to want to, close down and then get relief by jumping back into the system that they were in before. That's a hinder. That's a risk to this process that we're in. And then the seduction of comparison timelines. That's another problem. So we look at social media and we say, "Oh wow, Susan's landing in Africa, and April's in Belize, and Keith is walking through Champs Elysees in Paris, and I'm sitting in my
I'm just
fucking
stuck
office
here,
grinding
yeah.
away." So
Right.
yeah, so the seduction of comparing timelines to other people, or
Dangerous.
like you were saying, fake things is dangerous, right? Because
Mhm,
the AI and the technology is compressing all those timelines in every way.
mhm,
So whether we're looking at humans that are putting their best foot forward in social media, or whether we're looking at AI that just created this on a zero timeline, that's
mhm,
another risk of falling into the trap of oh, AI is bad, this is bad. And then I think the other thing, which full circle to the artist idea, reskilling, like reskilling, learning new skills as a mechanism or a process of avoidance for what's coming is another problem. It's another risk because we can't reskill fast enough to keep up with the technology.
mm,
So a person might
mhm,
say, like, there's a genuine paradox in what the AI moment is producing. On one hand, it's creating enormous, like, psychological threat for people who built identity on mastery and productivity. On the other, it's forcing this dismantling of conventional identity, and it's difficult, but it's also an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to express your values and your beliefs and your art and your being human, your humanness, in a new way and in a bold way. So I really
mm,
think that's why artists are going to thrive, and also why we need them now more than ever, because
mhm.
I don't want to watch a bunch of robots
Same,
play
I'm
soccer.
already tired of it. I think
Yeah,
everybody's already tired of it, and it's
yeah,
just starting, really. And
yeah.
another reason why we just need real experiences, travel, like, getting out there and actually being out in the world, like, touching,
Yeah.
feeling, grounding, like, meeting people, building communities, like, whether it's even a community online or communities throughout the world. I think it's really important to adventure as an artist, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely. A quick tie into that. So I think what AI is really doing, and how artists and seekers and really humans are going to fit into this, is what AI is doing is, like, it's potentially a forced evolution toward exactly the kind of post conventional selfhood that contemplative traditions and developmental psychologists have been describing for decades as a more mature and resilient way of being. So I think AI is actually going to pull us out of the crap that we've been in and put us back
mm,
into being human. It's going to
mm,
force, like, if, like, when a person goes through a breakup, a divorce, loses a job, a death in the family, it really it it's a punch in the chest, a gut punch, and oftentimes that forces you back into being very human, very raw, very
mhm,
vulnerable, very emotional. And I think that's kind of what AI is doing. It's like causing a breakup with our modern society. So in other words,
mm,
the AI disruption might be doing collectively what most difficult personal crises do individually, right?
mm,
Forcing
mhm.
people to stop mistaking the map for the territory. Like, stop confusing the
Ah,
roles they play with the person playing the roles, right? So it's
beautifully
going to force
said,
us to
beautifully
be
said.
more here.
Yeah. We'd all look like yeah, I agree. I mean, like, the whole world is a little bit nutty right now, and I feel that all of
Yeah.
it, like, compounded, it's a lot to deal with on a daily basis, it really is, but I think the good, when you seeing the good in all of it is the fact that, it's like you just said, it's just kind of forcing us to just be real humans again, and to really focus on like what is important in our lives, right? And
Yeah.
community and people and that human connection is super important. So hopefully we'll all start to focus on that a little bit and
Yeah, and
have
I
the
think
AI help us in ways that they
yeah,
can, mhm,
yeah,
but
think of
not
AI
lose our
for me.
humanality.
Right. No, no. For me, AI and technology is a companion. It's
Mhm,
a colleague, or yeah, it's the operational. It's the COO, not the
mhm.
CEO, right? And I think and
Mhm,
I've always argued this: the CEOs and founders and artists share something. And this is just my opinion, of course, as everything in this conversation is. Um,
mhm,
Artists are generalists. CEOs are generalists, right?
mhm,
Operations people are specialists. I feel like people that take this and go from here to here. They're a specialist in taking this from here to here. But an artist
mhm,
or a founder or something, whatever role you want to attach to that, is somebody that knows a little bit about everything, has walked through the thing called life for quite some time, has
mhm,
experienced all these travel is hugely important, learning from other cultures, right? Seeing
mhm.
art from other
Best
cultures.
education in the world. Mhm,
Best education in the world. And the funny thing is, and I made a reference, but I'll send you the framework that I created. That's loosely, well, not loosely, it's pretty much directly based on Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, which I know we've discussed before. But the idea is that we're all standing in this like familiar terrain, and then there's a call to adventure, right? And the call to adventure in my vernacular is a signal. It's just like something is curious, right? This happens when A, you engage in an artistic pursuit, or B, travel. I think they're very similar. So you have this signal, this call to adventure, right? You get on the airplane and you're going to this place you've never been before, or maybe you've been there before, you've been there, but you've been there in a different context. And there's an excitement to it. There's a curiosity to it. There's a very being human to it. So you have the familiar terrain that you're standing in on your day to day, and then you have this signal or call to adventure. And then at first you're like, okay, no, I'm not going to get on the plane. I want to save that $250 or 500 or 1,000 or 2,000, whatever it is. And so you sort of refuse and you kind of go back to your normal framework. And you and I have both done this. And I really believe this is what struck me most about you guys coming back around to adventure artists and building this project and this community, is for a while, maybe you resisted it. For
mhm,
whatever reason, not resisted it, but you're like, I'm just going to go back over here for a while. But then
mhm,
you just step over the threshold into this adventure, right? And then this is all part of the departure from the ordinary, and so you step into this adventure, and you there's no way to know how it's going to unfold. Travel is the same way. You get on that airplane, you step over the threshold into adventure. You don't know how it's going to unfold. You're going to be a changed
mhm,
person by the time you come back. There's no way around it. I
mhm,
don't care how
mhm,
boring the trip ended up being. And once you make a decision to leave your ordinary world or leave your job or come back to art or whatever, it changes you. Yeah. And then usually you meet a mentor along the way, not a mentor in a traditional sense, but you meet somebody that sparks something in you, or that says, hey, what about this? And yeah, and along the road, you just keep sort of building these new feelings and emotions and experiences. And that is something artists can do, travelers can do, and AI cannot.
mhm.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
And
Yeah.
I think people are going to need they're going to need adventurers, artists,
Mhm.
seekers, communicators, and storytellers to help them navigate their way in this new world of rapidly advancing technology.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Well, they are in the right
Thanks.
place here for
Yeah, I think
adventure
so.
artists.
Yeah, I love it. I've been
Um,
really enjoying everyone's comments, by the way. It's just amazing. It's really fun to see,
mm,
and I can
mm,
tell that everyone
mhm,
involved so far is absolutely committed to a lot of what we're talking about, and maybe they don't
mhm,
have the same words,
mhm.
but I can feel it. So yeah, I think it's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I feel like everybody in the community so far just really has an adventurous spirit, and they know,
Yeah.
they yeah, they know that getting around and meeting others and talking to other like-minded people and building community here to, like, build that synergy and everybody can help each other in our own projects. So
I
speaking of
think that's
helping
an
each other.
important. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut you
I
off. There's a
no,
little
go.
delay there. Sorry. Speaking of that, though, I think there's something really important to talk about openly. And so one of the things that's really troubled me with my project, and one of the reasons that I paused everything and sort of tried to reorient myself, was all the things that are going on with these guru type people, these spiritual leaders that we've followed for years that are popping up in the media in maybe not so aligned ways. Some of the people that we've read books by or followed in the past are now being exposed as maybe not the person that we all thought they were. And so I think
Mhm.
it's really important, in my opinion, to be almost like harshly real, harshly human. Harsh is not the right word, but just very, very real, and say, and I do it all the time in my conversations. Since you, I always say, I don't know. I, I've made horrible mistakes. I have said really dumb stuff. I have done things that I really hope no one ever wants me to talk
Same.
about because I don't like that I did those. But at the
Same.
time, I was doing, yeah, right. At the time, I was doing the best that I could with the framework and the model and the map that I was standing in, right? So I think it's
Mhm.
critically important, number one, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, not allow, but encourage ourselves and others to be vulnerable and open and be human, and not think that we know anything, but be curious about everything. So I think there's that. That's the first step, is really be human. The second thing, and this is the part that made me want to throw something in here, is there are going to be times where everything's going to feel very disoriented, right? In the process of building a community, of getting back to your art, of figuring out ways to use art in the world to help other people or inspire other people or teach other people or connect other people, or whatever the path is that each person chooses. There's gonna be this time where it's gonna be like really disorienting. And it is so important, in my opinion. All the conversations I've had, all the people that have made it through the craziness, have all found a way to be comfortable staying in that disorientation, in that middle space, in the in between.
Mhm.
Stay
Mhm.
there, surround yourself with people that are curious, support one another. If somebody's feeling like, wow, this whole art thing for me, it's my passion, it's my love, but I'm just, it doesn't make sense. I don't see a direction. Well, sit with them,
Mhm.
sit in the mud with them.
Mhm.
That's the best thing that you can do for somebody, in my opinion, is if
Mm.
they're in the mud, plop down right next to them, cross your legs, and have a conversation, right? So
Mm.
the
Mhm.
thing I love about this community so far is I've already seen that happening, where people are trying to uplift each other and support and offer connection and everything else. I love it, love it, love it.
Mhm.
I think you're all in a beautiful space, and I think it's the quote unquote right space to be in
Mhm.
for creative types. So yeah, I'm really
Great.
excited.
Thank you. Well, that segues me to the last 2 quick questions before we take off, because
Okay.
we are over our 1 hour. Not that there's, like, a time
Oh,
limit.
sorry. Yeah. See,
There's
I
no
told you.
no, so there's not a time limit, but yeah, I'm reeling you in. No. No.
Thank goodness.
Um
Thank AI. I can't say thank God anymore. I have to say thank AI because, I'm kidding.
Right. Okay, so my first question to you is along those lines. So, if you had one piece of advice for creatives of any kind that are maybe struggling within their mind, how they can make a difference or an impact in the world through their art and or their travels, what would
Mm,
that be?
great question. Wow. Well, first, I would say ask yourself, that person might ask themselves, what does art do for them? Right.
Okay.
And then articulate that in some way on a personal level. So if art makes a person feel more connected to humans, more connected to the earth, more connected to consciousness or God, Yahweh, Buddha, whatever it is, then articulate that on a personal level. And then think about how other people could benefit from a similar connection, right?
Mm, mhm,
So rather than manufacturing something external, I would say really reconnect with what it really means and does for the artist, and then
mm,
embody that. become that, become that
Mm.
expression of that,
Mhm.
and share it with anyone that wants to
That's beautiful.
have the conversation, right? And don't be
Mhm.
afraid if somebody looks at you and says, "Yeah, it's kind of weird," or "I don't like that." That's okay. That just
Just
means
be
they're
you,
not ready for that.
unapologetically you, yes. Mhm.
Yeah,
Be the
yeah. So
change.
that's the first chunk. And when it comes to travel, you know my feeling on this. Travel as much as possible, as often as possible. Be as open as possible, and bring you, the real you, and your art with you, and
Mm.
share it with everybody. And the other thing, the last little part of that is absorb their art, right? Because that's what
So
this is all
true.
about.
Yes.
That is what's going to make humans human and keep
Yes.
us human as we move forward. It's going to be this collaborative effort of sharing what makes us tick and what keeps us
Mhm.
real and keeps us human. So, yeah.
Yes, supporting the other artists that are expressing themselves in different ways.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
then that leads me very eloquently to my last question is how can we support you, Scott Bain, in your
Oh,
endeavors? Like, how
well,
can we support you or
that's,
help you in any way?
yeah, no, that's wonderful. Thank you. So, right now, I've pulled all of the content back. So, we are going to relaunch and republish the shows, the podcast, and the writing and the roadmaps and everything, because as I mentioned earlier, I found myself drifting into a land I didn't want to drift into, but I didn't realize I was doing it. And it was
Mm,
ironically when I was talking with Ian, the therapist from LA, as the conversation was unfolding, I recognized that I was drifting into that prescriptive, performative, kind of self-helpy, sort of weird vernacular. And I
mm,
immediately said, no, time out. That's not, where I'm going. So we pulled a lot of the content. We pulled the content back, and we're sort of reworking that a little bit. And then we're going to do a relaunch pretty soon. So I'll share that with the community, of course. And just, yeah, I'd love to hear any feedback or ideas or questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, because I always really value feedback from artists. And the other thing that I think is really helpful is just keep being curious, keep asking good questions, and I don't know, share them with me. If there's a fun conversation, oh, I want to read it. If
mhm,
there's somebody makes a personal discovery, the way you can really support
mm,
me is to share it with other people, so
mhm,
that
share
we
wins.
can all,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, and then when things kind of get back up and running on a functional level here, I'll share that with you guys, and you can all choose whether or not it you know works for you or it feels right for you or not, and then you can share it with your networks. But really, it's just for me. Let's just say that the way that you can help me is by continuing to focus on art being human and sharing it with everyone that you can, and that
Mm,
really, because that helps all of us. So directly, yeah, that's what my hope would be. I'll share some things with you, Suze, that you can put in the collective, in the group, just for people to kind of explore a little bit on their own. And yeah, and anyone can reach out anytime if they just have a question, a conversation, an idea, or yeah,
and
if
where's
we're
the
in the
best
same
way
zip
to
code,
reach out?
love to sit with you on the podcast. So I'd love to have anyone in this group to be a guest
Oh,
and have a
lovely.
conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. So I'll share your socials and contact
Oh
information
yeah, it'd be
in
great.
the show notes. That's what all the podcasters say. Ooh,
Yes, yes.
really
I forgot
appreciate
about saying that. The
it.
first 10 or 12 I recorded, I forgot to say anything about show notes or about any, like and subscribe.
Oh, gee, I'm
Yeah,
already
that'd be
ahead.
great.
Who's got no. All right, no,
Yes,
thank
you
you so
are.
much. Just so joking. Thank you so much, Scotty, for sharing your light
Of
with
course.
everybody. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for the
Okay,
invitation. Was and still am feeling very honored to be a part of it also. Thank you.
thank you. Ciao, ciao.